So looking at the UI piece of our project, the first thing we need to do is add a couple of references. So we'll go back to Solution, Project, and we're going to bring in both the core and the SQL utility. This main form, I'm going to open up my toolbox, and I want to add a status strip, a tool strip container, and I want to choose this doc fill to form, and that'll snap it to the edges of the form. And then I want one of these menu strips. I'm going to drag it and I'm going to put it down here next to the status strip 1 at the bottom, and that'll give me a menu at the top. So from here I can go in and I can do File, Edit, Help, just like in a real app. We'll do Exit, and then we could put in things here like cut, copy, paste, help, about. Okay. If we want to implement the action links, so you can do like Alt F. If you guys ever use that on your keyboard, you do ampersand file, and I know it's hard to see, but there's actually a little underline underneath the F. So when the app runs, we can just say Alt F, and that'll take us to our file menu. F2 here, we can add an ampersand in front of X, and that'll be exit. So you can do Alt FX. I recommend, if you go that route and do those either in this project or any point in the future, try to follow the conventions that already exist. I'm sure you've run into programs that don't follow basic keyboard or Windows UI conventions, and you go, why did they put the toolbar on the right hand side of the screen instead of on the top where everyone else does? So unless you have a good design reason to do that, sticking to the conventions makes your app easier to use. So keep that in mind. Alright, so we have that. I can now grab this tool strip and I can actually pop it into this tool strip container here at the top. And I recommend using the tool strip container, because otherwise what happens is your controls that you'll drag into the center of the form, they end up getting tucked behind your toolbars. So we can add a button here. I'm going to go ahead and add 3 buttons here. Actually, I'll add 4. Each one of these buttons has its own set of properties, just like any other control. Each button has its own name as well. So I use TSB as my camel casing Hungarian notation for my controls. So this is tool strip button. And this will be my add user button. I can go through here and I can actually select an image that I want to use. I don't have anything, so let's go out to the internet and see what we can find. That looks good. Come on. I'm actually going to choose view page here because I've used this site before. They have some pretty decent icons. So I'm going to go ahead and download this PNG of it. And I'll just save it to my desktop for now. Can use that one for delete. Guess I'll use that one for edit. So back inside of Visual Studio, I'll go to the properties of that button. I'll click on this image property, and I'll choose import, jump to my desktop, grab that icon, select it. Now these two properties are important here. We have image align and image scaling. So it automatically took that giant image and scaled it to fit. Do the same thing with the edit and delete buttons. That was called document. So obviously our edit button isn't the best, but I do need an exit. So I'll just clear and replace. All right. So now these buttons, they function just the same as any other button. If you want to manage the click event, you double click on the button you want to use, and it'll create the event handler for you. In this case, this will be our exit. I'm actually going to use this event handler as a method. I'm going to flip back here, go back to File and Exit. Same idea, double click. It'll generate the event handler. I'm going to call the toolstrip button 4 click event handler inside of the menu item click event handler. I'm just going to pass those event args sender and E into this call. So what happens is that when I click the toolstrip menu to exit, when I choose that item, it's actually going to call the event handler for the button in the toolbar. So instead of writing application exit 2 times, I'm just writing it once, and then one is daisy chained off the other. And then if I decide I want to change something, I just change it in one method, and then all the other methods take over that change as well. If I really wanted to get practical, I could probably even create a method that says exit program and then have all of them call that method. So now if I run my app, comes up, it's beautiful, doesn't really do anything, but I can click my button and exit. Yeah.
When you import those icons, does it automatically copy the files to the project, or is it just to a relative URL?
It actually copies them to the project, and inside of the form, or I shouldn't say inside of the form, but coupled with the form, you have this form1.cs, form1.designer.cs, and then you have this resx file. That's referred to as the resources file, and that file actually contains all of the non-coding elements within your application. So when you import an image, it gets loaded into that resources file, and then it ultimately gets compiled into the app. So there is no relative URLs. You do have the ability to create relative URLs if you want. I think if I set image again, oh, no, you can just, it still points to a resource file. You just get to pick which resource file you want to look at. Typically what happens is if you have an application that is, what's the word I want to use? Basically, that's published in many languages. You can publish separate class libraries that contain nothing but resources. And then you publish or deploy the appropriate resource library along with your application to give you the right buttons, the right labels, the right words, even in some cases. And that's how you make them locale specific, is the term. Any other questions?